It is October, it's fall. It is the best time to dig up trees. One of the online trading platforms told me today there is a forsythia and a dwarf lilac that needs to be dug out of a garden. Now, this is optimal time for transplanting, so let me go out, get those trees, get them planted up and show you how I do that. So I'm going to bring you along, but no guarantees that there's a lot of information when digging. Now this is not perfect for digging, so let me get changed and let me get some equipment and then let's go. Let's get some stuff, let's go. Key to digging, a good spade, and I actually sharpened the spade so that I can get through big roots. Can you see? There's this nice line. A sharp saw, big clippers, small clippers. Right, let's go. So there we go. I'm not going to film the whole process, I'm just going to make a circle around, then I'm going to take a spade, cut out a little channel around the tree, get underneath it and lift it, in theory. And this all needs to be cut back, because otherwise it won't fit in my garden. A lot more manageable. Now I can just go all around, cut off the main roots and then try to lift the whole thing out. Should be quite easy. Lilac is out. The forsythia, however, is a bit of a different story. I'm not sure it's going to be that easy to get out. The lilac only took 15 minutes. Let's start off by also reducing this to something manageable for the car. Right, and now it's just a matter of doing the same thing as with the lilac. Cutting all the main roots, lifting it. Easy peasy, right? And now you know why I sharpened my spade. There we go. Right, both of them back home. Now it's time to pot them up. Important to realize, forsythia has a tendency to sprout from the base and let longer stalks die off if they are too weak. So I'm going to prune it back a little bit, but I'm going to leave substantial stalks here so that in spring it is stimulated to get some buds on these and don't start straight from the roots. Then I'm going to take off all the field soil. I'm going to prune back the roots as much as possible. I'm going to try to get it in a small container and then just wait for winter to pass. Now, how much soil can I take off? These are very, very strong. And from the past I've learned that lilac also is very strong rerooting. So I can really go back to maybe 5 to 10 centimeters, 2 to 4 inches, and the rest is all going to take off. You already saw in the video that in the garden I chopped off the bottom of the roots, but I'm still going to go further. Now there's no real quick way to do it. It really is just a matter of taking a root hook and some root pruners and scissors and just gently start scraping out the soil. At some point I might wash it. I don't have a pressure washer. I don't like a pressure washer. So that is really the last resort. And it's not too bad if a little bit soil stays in the middle of the root ball. That will come out over the years as I'm developing this. But I want to try and see how far I can get now. And this really is a balance between what do I need in the final design, which is not nearly as much as is here, but also allowing the tree some space to die back. This is already dead. But right now I'm not making major design choices. I'm leaving every single stalk in place, at least until I've removed most of the soil. Then I can also see which ones are superfluous. But for dieback, it is always good to leave some of these trunks in place, even though you don't need them. And this, just a little short stump. Not this tall. Already a lot more manageable, wouldn't you say? This is what 15-20 minutes of removing soil does. Look at how open this root ball now is. Now it is time to prune it back, but first I'm going to wash it a little bit to make sure all these little fine roots don't dry out too much. Now I can of course also do a deep rinse, but I don't think it is necessary. Most of the normal soil is already out of the root ball. This of course does help me now because I can see a lot better which roots are key to keep and which just come up and are in the way. Now I can just very nicely clean it out. Well, nature is helping me, it's starting to rain. Let's move the party inside. And ideally I start at the bottom of the root ball to see how far I can prune these roots back to the base of the tree, because this is just depth of your root ball and that is really not something we're after. And you don't have to make the final cut in one go, just start pruning away and slowly you get closer and closer. And maybe at some point you decide this is just too heavy and I need a saw, but then it helps to have all this smaller stuff already pruned away. Of course you have to remove everything that is broken during the digging process, so that you get nice smooth cuts as much as possible. And as I said, these sort of clumps, this might take a little bit of time to remove completely. Now the difficult part. There we go. And now with the stump gone, I can from the bottom start reducing the length of all these side roots. And yes, this is how short I hope to get my whole root ball in the end. I might have a few thick roots that I have to trim, but all in all, this is how short it can become. But at the bottom of the trunk, I want as few roots as possible that are important. So I want everything to move up as much as possible, so I get a very, very shallow root ball. Because the more you remove, the more scent you also encounter. So I just wash that out a little bit more. But now this pretty much is ready to be flipped around and work on the nabari. And here of course it's now just a matter of the same thing, right? Looking at the roots, this is a very heavy root. I want to keep the root but not as long. There's a little side root. Trying to keep them not all equal length. Some shorter, the ones in the bottom a little bit longer, cutting away that are long and straight, the ones that are coming up, maybe even a little bit here high up. Now this I want to go back quite far. There's no need for heavy roots in the middle of the root ball. As the tree is just collected, it is full of energy and full of power. So now is the time to cut back big roots. It will recover very easily from this in spring, or maybe even still this fall. So don't be too hesitant. If you want to remove thick roots later on, it's going to be a lot more concerning for the tree, because it will be less strong than when it just comes from the full ground. It might feel counterintuitive, which is why I'm actually making it quite explicit now. What a mess. Right, so I found myself a pot. And this tree fits it quite well. And I'm going to pull it up quite high. I'm going to push these roots down. And as substrate, this is diatomaceous earth. This holds a lot of water. And this is just my regular, very coarse pumice. And there's some, what is it, expanded shale in there as well. This is just very, very coarse substrate. But this just needs a lot of air, but also a lot of water. So this is what I'll use it for. Let me just mix this up, pour a bit in the bottom, and then add substrate on top and wiggle it between the roots. So no overthinking. This is also not planting up for design purposes yet. I might tilt it a little bit later on. Needs to go a little bit higher, just like that. That's better. Roots down, substrate in, chopstick it down and water it well and be done with it. And unfortunately we're not done. The whole cleanup and potting up is taking an hour. So there's more time spent on cleanup and potting up than on actual digging. Now lilac is a very strong species, and also the dwarf lilac, what this is quite strong. So I don't need to be too careful with the roots. And in fact all these suckers I'm just going to remove until I just have a few trunks left over. It's nice weather for recovery of these plants. It's still warm, but very wet. It's also windy, as you can maybe hear. But it's not nice for working outside. I'm getting wet. And just systematically go through the root ball and revisit after 1 or 2 rounds. All the soil should be gone, so much that you can easily lift this plant, because most of the weight is just this very heavy wet soil. This cleanup of the roots also includes the removal of moss and leaves, and if I find any stems that are obviously dead, they're also being removed. I'm trying to clean this up as much as possible without going overboard in cleaning everything away, but just enough so you can later on see the full structure of the tree, see which main stems emerge from the roots, and with that make decisions on which parts to prune off, and maybe remove multiple trunks or keep all of them. And of course this tree is now very overgrown with all sorts of long straight stalks, none of which is going to be a final tree. So all the long sections can at this point just be reduced, even though I don't know yet what the design will be. Now most of the substrate is off, most of the small branches are out. A little gentle rinse so I can see better what's happening with these roots. But this looks like a really nice plant, and I'm thinking I can try to plant this all up at this root level, cutting off all the lower roots and just have a very broad, raft. No, not raft, clump. So let me flip this around and remove all the big roots at the bottom and see how close I can get to a very, very shallow root ball. Now I'm going to go and be quite radical. I know that lilac is a strong species when it comes to rerooting, so I'm just going to gently but drastically remove lots of these roots here. Naturally, as I'm doing this, I also encounter more soil, and when I do, I'm going to scratch a bit of it out and just make it all nice and clean, because the tree will never be as strong as it is now, coming right after the growing season, just out of the ground and cut back. Next year this tree will not be as strong because it's been growing in a pot then, so that's a good thing to keep in mind. Always do major root work directly after lifting from the ground with getting all the roots. Now this is a reasonably sized pot, and this fits exactly. I'm just going to put some coarse substrate in the bottom and then fill it up with much finer substrate. And this coarse substrate, of course, I have it left over from a previous repotting, and it also means I don't have to put a mesh in the bottom because it won't fall through the little holes. Something like this, making sure all the roots go in, chopstick and more substrate. And there we have it. The forsythia is all potted up, ready to go for the next season. I have a few buds here, there are some living branches, and this should be good to go. And how about the lilac, you wonder? Well, the lilac is also all potted up. Look at this tree. Also here, lots and lots of living branches. This is in the end going to be some sort of a clump style or root connected bonsai. There is lots of sprouts coming with roots on its own. I will have to trim some of these back, but first I'm just going to wait for spring and see how this buds. And then I can decide which one am I going to shorten, which one I'm going to keep. But first it needs to stabilize itself in this pot. So that is probably for another video. This was Jelle, growing bonsai with collecting 2 quite big and heavy shrubs from a garden. Twice half an hour in the car to go and a few hours of work. It's not bad for starter material, right? This was Jelle, growing bonsai. See you next time. Oh, before you go, if you're interested in other videos about planting up field grown stuff, have a look at that one. Or maybe you're interested in how a cherry developed over the 3 years after I dug it up, and that is that one. See you next time.